On this Memorial Day, take a moment to remember service and sacrifice. I don't know where I will find myself on Monday when taps are played at the National Memorial Day program at Arlington National Cemetery. But count on this, I won't be partying it up at a backyard barbecue bash or dashing from store to store in a shopping mall catching doorbuster sales. I also can't say whether I will devote an hour or minutes to remembering the fallen. But I know with certainty that some time will be spent giving thanks for the men and women who shed their blood and sacrificed their lives in service to the United States. They were brothers and sisters in a military uniform that I proudly shared as a commissioned officer in the Army. At his dedication of the battlefield cemetery at Gettysburg in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln spoke of the sacrifice of the fallen troops as having given the last full measure of devotion to the nation. Generations have given their all. A few of them were college classmates and fellow ROTC graduates who returned home from Vietnam in flag-draped coffins. There will be no picnics for any of them. They won't be joining any trips to the mall or family get-togethers. They, and the more than 65,000 U.S. service members who were killed in Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan, will never know what it's like to get a day off the job, to gas up the car and hit the road. And regrettably, many of them will be simply forgotten. But we can't let it go with that. What then am I asking? Take a pass on holiday sales? Close the grill? Spend Monday wearing sackcloth and ashes as an outward, ostentatious sign of mourning? Perish those thoughts. But to reduce Memorial Day to just a grand occasion to kick off the summer is disrespectful of those who gave all they had. Besides, Memorial Day has a special resonance for this DC native. We still don't have what we have rightly earned as citizens, full and equal representation in Congress or full authority to govern ourselves. Yet the service and sacrifice of DC residents in the protection of the country, which should be a source of national tribute, is not even afforded an afterthought. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, Democrat D.C., however, has detailed the costs borne by the district in a resolution introduced in advance of Memorial Day recognizing D.C.'s service members and veterans. Most Americans, I dare say, do not know the facts in Norton's resolution. 635 D.C. residents were casualties of World War I, a figure greater than that observed by 3 states during that war. The casualty figure of 3,575 D.C. residents lost in World War II was greater than that sustained by 4 states. The 547 D.C. residents who were Korean War casualties were greater than that observed by 8 different states. 243 district residents were casualties of the Vietnam War, a casualty figure greater than that observed by 10 states. We D.C. residents have more than paid our dues, but we have done so, as Norton says, without the equal protections of American democracy. So yes, I'm going to carve out a stretch of time on Monday to honor the men and women who have paid the ultimate price. But mockers of Memorial Day observances, let not your hearts be troubled. I am a realist. Memorial Day has been successfully, and probably irrevocably, appropriated by many for pleasure and profit. So, all I'm asking is that you take a moment, one moment out of the day to remember, to commemorate the service and sacrifice. Those of us in the autumn of our years will appreciate that simple act of yours. So too will the families and friends of the fallen. On this Memorial Day, take a moment to remember service and sacrifice. I don't know where I will find myself on Monday when taps are played at the National Memorial Day program at Arlington National Cemetery. But count on this, I won't be partying it up at a backyard barbecue bash or dashing from store to store in a shopping mall catching doorbuster sales. I also can't say whether I will devote an hour or minutes to remembering the fallen. DeSantis should learn from one of the biggest blunders in American marketing. Wednesday evening's overthought and underprepared glitch festival on Twitter Spaces was at least a fitting coda to the preceding months. If Ron DeSantis does not win his party's presidential nomination, his pre-announcement campaign will be remembered for making a sow's ear out of a silk purse. Beginning with many advantages, the Florida governor spent months diminishing himself by positioning himself as the new Coke of Republican politics. This has been, to say no more, a puzzling strategy. For those unfamiliar with the most remarkable pratfall in the history of American marketing, DeSantis was 6 years old when it occurred in April 1985. Some Coca-Cola executives who had too much time on their hands decided to fix the world's most popular soft drink. The company changed the beverage's famously secret formula. Customers, unamused, wondered why, vociferously. After just 79 days, the original was restored to its throne, rebranded as Coca-Cola Classic. New Coke lingered until euthanized in 2002. Speaking not for attribution, a Republican who might join the nomination scramble has compared DeSantis to New Coke, with Donald Trump as the original. In 1985, people who liked Coke as it was had no interest in a substitute, and people who did not like the original did not crave a tweaked imitation. DeSantis has been marketing himself as Trump with the jagged edges filed off. But Trumpkins love their hero because of his jaggedness. And people repelled by Trump are uninterested in a smoother version of him. Besides, DeSantis is sometimes only slightly smoother. DeSantis does not merely boast, as he is entitled to, that he has triumphed over Florida's Democratic Party. Rather, he gloats crudely that the party is basically a dead, rotten carcass on the side of the road. Now, many Americans apparently want a swaggering president who talks like that. But those Americans are, it is safe to say, not nearly a majority. They probably purr with contentment about the name of DeSantis Super PAC, Never Back Down, which burnishes his jawed, spoiling for a fight persona. But, again, people who like this can vote, some of them for a third time, for the prototype. Is DeSantis content to forfeit the votes of the millions of Americans who are experiencing pugnacity fatigue? DeSantis is unfairly faulted for not seeming to relish an essential aspect of his chosen vocation. Politics involves making huge quantities of small talk with strangers. There is something admirable about a loner in a business dominated by the professionally gregarious. Unless the loner is that way because he thinks he has nothing to learn from others. In an illuminating new book, Unlikely Heroes, Franklin Roosevelt, His Four Lieutenants, and the World They Made, Derek Liebart says about one of the four, the combative and dyspeptic Interior Secretary Harold Ikes, loneliness was the isolating discovery of himself being solely right while everyone else was wrong. DeSantis supporters argue, plausibly, that Trump is unelectable. But Trumpkins, whom DeSantis hopes to peel away from their idol, can say four things. Unelectable is what was said in 2016. It was said again in 2020, when he again won but the results were rigged. And have you recently seen and heard Joe Biden? Besides, it is better to fight shoulder to shoulder with the real deal, with the classic, rather than with a new version. The DeSantis campaign's financial resources at the onset of the nomination contest might be the most impressive cash stash since the one accumulated